children construct it. We build who we are. We know who we are, almost as if we're looking into a mirror. And our parents are that mirror, our schools are that mirror. And what we want is the same identity no matter where we're living. So if I was a good at, I can flip a puck on the end of a hockey stick and catch it or something like that's part of my identity.
Yeah.
If I'm I really am good at cleaning up or I like to cook or I just simply am really good at spelling, I want that identity to travel with me through both experiences. And of course, you get other resilience factors like control, that children need to be able to make decisions for themselves. Now, they might sleep in blue pajamas in mom's house, and they might sleep in some sort of, maybe they sleep in their underwear or whatever at dad's house. I don't really care. Whatever is the whole household norm. But the point is that they get to decide that. So if they're at dad's house and they say, I really like my fuzzy pajamas, then generally speaking, it's a good practice. I know it sounds so simple, but we'd be surprised how often children's own voices, their sense of control or efficacy, isn't necessarily put into place. And then we see the anxieties and the acting out and the that stress point. So, things like efficacy, control, things like powerful identities, and of course, maintaining relationships, financial well-being, not changing activities too much, as much as possible, encouraging attachments to grandparents, including the grandparents on the other side of the family, building a network of relationships. That's the essence of resilience. And when we create worlds that are, really almost like I like to say we're fairy godmothers, like in Cinderella's sort of story.
Yeah.
When we have our magic wand and we create that sort of, we turn the pumpkin into the golden carriage and we create a magical environment around the child where they're just held and nurtured and everything good happens to them. That, in a sense, is our role. We are their fairy godmothers and fairy godfathers in these situations.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like what's needed for that is something fairly simple, which is just communication between the parents. It seems like if we could distill it down to some of those recommendations that you had in terms of that whole feeling of instilling that sense of worth in the child. I'm really good at flipping my hockey stick, and my mom says I'm good at it, my dad says I'm good at it, and I can carry that talent because they encourage it. Even in high conflict situations, I would think it would be relatively simple for parents to be able to say, boy, I'm going to go to that hockey game, and are you going to go to the hockey game too? And what are we going to do to encourage that or foster that?
That's right.
You might not get along. The parents might not get along. They might not even want to spend time to each other, but it's not that difficult that you could think there are a few basic things that we could encourage in both of our homes that would give that stability and consistency, so the child doesn't feel like they're constantly trying to please me, please you, please me.
Absolutely. And the more we can sort of create that, not to totally undersell it, there will be people, listening to this. I'm sure you've had clients as well that frankly, that communication is just not really that possible, especially sometimes it's one person wants that communication, the other doesn't. What I would say, thinking back to my clinical work with kids in those situations, sometimes it's a matter of the child also realizing that, mom or dad is simply not going to play along with this. So sometimes it's also about bringing the child on board to understand that, this parent is struggling, whether it's with an addictions problem or something else that's just not making them want that or can participate in that kind of more mature relationship. Well, if that's the case, then it doesn't mean that, we can't create nice, secure, stable environments for the child while they're sort of with us as a primary parent. And children will adapt as long as they know that there is a consistent message there. And in fact, that this parent has been reaching out to the other as best as possible. In other words, children seem to cut us a fair bit of slack if we can, because there is realistic barriers to some of this as well. And I think the resilience sometimes is also just sometimes an honest communication and a trust that the parent is actually on my side. I might not like it as a child that I can't, that both my parents aren't going to show up at the hockey game at exactly the same time or watch me play piano or something like that. But at least if I know that the one parent was, making some effort and that there was a genuine concern for my well-being and some, a little bit of a you know, I know that you would like to control this better, but you can't, kind of acknowledgement.
Mhm.
Anything that goes towards acknowledging the need for control, acknowledging the powerful identities, acknowledging the need for structure, including if it breaks down at the other person's house. I found that children are actually much more, quote unquote, resilient. They're much more adaptable and connect to negotiate complex relationships relatively well, as long as there is at least a consistent bedrock, so that
Mhm.
they move away from that bedrock, they you know, they sort of they can kind of bounce back and come back into a rather stable. But there is a caveat, and I'm sure you've seen this, Diane, too. The parent who is the more better resourced, more the fairy godmother, the fairy godfather, who's going to sort of stabilize the child's life, is also going to get a backlash, right? Well, at the other house, I can eat chocolate for breakfast, you know, like, or whatever, right? And
Mhm.
you kind of get, but you know, I always say to parents who are getting that, the reason you're getting that is because you're actually doing it right, and the child is safe, and they're actually, you're the safe person to rebel against. They're not rebelling in the other home because they're desperately afraid that if the moment they rebel or ask for more structure or do anything, that parent's going to reject them. It's so tenuous that they can't yell. So take the, I know it sounds odd, but sometimes the acting out is actually a sign that you're the better, you know, you're more bonded, and therefore the child's safer. Because a good, often in our culture, children who are bonded well and safe, they rebel. I know that I might have a little bit. And you only do, you want, it's almost like having a brick wall that you can push off of.
Yeah.
But if you have Jello for a wall, you can't push.
Right.
You sink in.
Right.
So this is this kind of very, I mean, as a family therapist and all that kind of stuff, I'm always thinking these kinds of dynamics, but it's also about putting in child, giving the child, think about this from the child's point, what do they need to be more resilient?
Yeah.
And once you find those things, it at least knows, reassure yourself that the child will do fine eventually.